I first met today's guest when he was a teammate and my captain at Northern Districts Cricket Club during one of my winters playing grade cricket in Sydney. He's played all around the world in T20, including winning the Big Bash with Sydney Thunder, playing in the PSL for three different teams, played in Canada for the Toronto Nationals, played in the Caribbean Premier League where he played for the Guyana Amazon Warriors and eventually captained them. And then last year made his debut in county cricket where played for my team, Birmingham Bears, and for this season he was also appointed their T20 captain for this year. He's also picked up in the last IPL auction to play for KKR. So welcome to the Spin Badger podcast, Chris Green.
Thanks for having me, mate. Good to see you.
And you, mate. I think when I thought about doing this, you're definitely one of the first people I thought about getting on, just because I know, I think it's really interesting how you go about your business. I know from a lot of chats we've had that I guess it's a very modern approach to being a spinner. So I think hopefully this will provide a bit of interest. So starting at the beginning, mate, what was your journey like to becoming a spinner and playing for Thunder?
Yeah, I guess it was most people would say that you either start out as a spinner or you start out as a pace bowler and convert to spin bowling. For me, I always considered myself as a batsman growing up, and at some stages I still sort of do or hope to do, because I find spin bowling can be a live by the sword, die by the sword sort of art. But I think it was age 12. I was a military medium pacer, barely getting a go to bowl, and because I just wanted to be involved as much as possible, there were no spinners in the team, so I chose the easier version of spin. You do the tougher version in leg spin, so I chose the easy one in off spin, and it progressed from there. I was able to get more and more of a bowl through under 12s, then just keep sort of just applying my trade as you do, and trying to bowl more and more. And I think, I don't know whether it was through the defensive style that suited me, or it was more a mental side that was always my main goal, and going, I'm not a big turner of the ball even as a young kid, but how can I reduce runs and be super accurate to take my wickets that way, rather than bamboozle batsmen either side of their bat, if you like. And that just sort of was self-taught, really, just trying to hit the stumps, be as hard as possible to get away up until I was 20. And then that's when I started getting coaching on it, started obviously getting better and doing better with my bowling in grade cricket, getting more opportunities to play higher, I guess, as a genuine all-rounder. And then, all of a sudden, one good one-day game, and I got picked as a bowler by the Thunder and New South Wales as sort of like a bowling all-rounder, from seeing myself as a batting all-rounder, if you like, to now getting my opportunities in cricket as a bowler, a bowling all-rounder, or a bowler that bats well. So yeah, I guess that was my lead into spin bowling, and it progressed from there. And yeah, upon getting coaching at sort of 19, 20, has able to sort of develop more and more skills as I go, and just sort of picking them up from season to season, really.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that there's quite a few spinners that I've spoken to already that say about that, there wasn't a spinner in the team, so they took it up. And I think that it might be a common thread that someone who thinks about where there's chances and then commits to it, it seems like that often can lead to quite a bit of success. And I think as well, you mentioned there about being very self-aware from a young age about, what was your strengths, what you're good at. So I think definitely later on it'd be good to touch on some of those. But staying on when you were younger, I know from previous conversations that you played really high level of tennis up to kind of 18, 19. It could have easily gone the other way in terms of a sports career. Do you think having a background in a different sport has helped your cricket a lot?
I think so. I think, particularly when you break cricket down to the crux of your skills, fielding, batting and bowling, even though it's a team sport, when you're executing those skills and the ball's in your hand or the bat's in your hand, you're an individual. It's an individual game that you're contributing to a team effort, but you're actually by yourself. And I think it's often forgotten about how much support that someone needs. So I think coming from an individual sport background certainly helped me get used to the fact of, okay, now I've got to deal with pressure, or deal with executing my skills in a high pressure scenario rather. And, I don't really want to ask for help, because that's not seen as a good look if you're asking for help in the moment, going, hey, I really don't know what to do here. I need your help. Even though, most captains or players would probably want you asking that question, the fear of what people may perceive of you not knowing is that, okay, I'm not good enough, or I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think I should be here. So I definitely think having, I guess, that self-awareness, if you like, of what makes me me, from dealing with tennis and going through those challenges alone, to then bring them into a team game where there are times where we're always going to feel all alone on the field, bowling in high pressure moments, going, okay, I need to try and get through this, or I need to try and execute for my team plan here. So I think that's where it relates, or has related, and helped me really progress through my career.
You spoke about that, what makes you you. So like specifically in T20, like what are the things you think that are your strengths?
That's a tough question. Well, I'd like to say I've got a good game awareness, and sort of can read what I think's going on in the game, or interpret what I believe the batter's trying to do, and that obviously links into, I love thinking about the game, hence why I always try and look for ways where I can help from a leadership perspective, whether it be captaining, vice captaining, or just in the senior playing group, and just from a tactical point of view, helping out where I can. So I always love thinking about the game and the game situation, what I think's happening, whether I'm in the field or when I'm bowling. So, as I said, as an off spinner in Australian conditions and in most conditions around the world, there's not a lot going for you. So you've got to sort of try and outthink or outsmart your opponent. And that's something that I enjoy doing. And that could come again, to your previous question, from the individual side. On a tennis court, you're by yourself. You've got to try and figure out your opponent's weaknesses and strengths. If you can't do it in the warm-up, you've got to do it pretty quickly. Otherwise, that first set can go by. If you relate it to cricket, if you haven't figured them out in your research before the game, and you can't figure out in those early balls whether they're facing you or other bowlers, then you're probably going to see more balls disappearing to the fence than you'd like, and you find yourself fielding or ending the game in not contributing to how you would like. So that's something that, I enjoy trying to do. Backing my gut instinct, I think, is, for me, my biggest sort of thing that I try to ram home, and has been rammed home from me by other senior players that I've played with and against, about, really trusting your gut instinct, and you'll never regret backing your gut, because you'll always learn more from it. Whereas if you get influenced by someone else, you're never fully committing to what they are telling you to do as you would your gut. So that's something that, I guess I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but I would say that's my biggest strength. And it's something that I just enjoy, the challenge of it, if you like, because it's always different.
They always say, don't they, that although it's your gut and you're going on instinct, that comes from your previous experiences. So although it might feel like it's a emotional decision, I guess it's like very intellectual in thinking about what you've experienced before and what's brought you success and stuff.
Yeah, and it's, like you related to everything, is you line up a putt in golf, and all of a sudden you're looking and this doesn't feel right, and you miss it, and it's like, I should have gone with my gut instinct, and you regret it. Whereas if you go with your gut instinct and you miss it, you're like, okay, cool, that was just a misread. So it's a different thing to live by. And yeah, as you say, you had that gut instinct for a reason, and wherever it came from is probably, the best case to follow. So that's always something that, I try and trust, because I think, as I said, my intuition or game awareness or whatever you want to sort of coin as that term, is I try and use that as my biggest strength.
So you said like you go on that gut a lot. In terms of like your preparation for games, will you do a lot of analysis to help inform the decisions you'll make in the middle?
Yeah, I don't like, from a footage and stats point of view, I'll, if I don't know players, I'll look to use that. But often what I find, particularly with these global tournaments, but even local tournaments, is, some of your teammates or have come up against those guys or played with those guys in the past. And a few simple questions on how they play. And I find, left and right-handers play spin really in either traditional or non-traditional manner. So it's like, do they sweep? Do they reverse sweep? If they don't, they're typically strong down the ground. If they do, then they're not typically strong down the ground. And then when you get those 360 players, it's like, okay, cool. I need to get this guy off strike, because if I spend a long time bowling at him, I'm in trouble.
Do you have like a ball that you're bowled to try and get people off strike, like right or left-handers?
Almost every ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like something that always stuck by me, and I talk about this a lot, is at the Thunder, I spent all my time bowling at Shane Watson just because of how damaging of a player he is. And I was able to get so much feedback off him and figure out, I guess, and build and develop my game plan around that, because, he's one of the world's best, particularly against spin and particularly in T20 cricket. And I asked him about dot balls and singles, and he said to me, in the power play in particular, singles are like, he considers singles as dot balls, and then outside of the power play, it's still prevalent for him. So I thought, well, if he's seeing singles as dot balls, imagine how he sees singles as a right arm off spinner bowling at him. It's like, that must be infuriating. So it's how many singles can I go for? And I know that if I go for a single, then I'm a chance of getting a dot ball. I'm also a chance of getting a two. And the more time he spends, or those players are spending up my end thinking about the game, that, the more chance they're going to come harder and go away from their game plan as well. So I typically will bowl my 6 balls trying to get the batter off strike every ball, because then I break it in 2 and I've only got 3 balls at each batter. I can use a variation and do it that way. And if you go at 6 and over in T20 cricket, you're doing pretty well. And even in one-day cricket now, they're looking at those numbers being pretty decent as well.
I think that mindset for how different people go about it is really interesting. I think that's why a lot of these conversations can be interesting things. I think for me, if I think about getting someone off strike, so say for a leg spinner to a right-hander, you might bowl try and bowl a cut ball out to the sweeper. I physically I don't enjoy that mindset, because I feel like if I'm aiming for a cut ball and I miss it, it's like a real bad ball. Whereas if I'm if I'm trying to bowl my best ball, I think naturally there might be a bit of singles and stuff. But I guess everyone's different. Like you said, I think off spin and leg spin are very different, and I guess as well that we have pretty different roles most of the time in T20 in terms of you'll generally bowl the very hard overs, whereas I just chill in the middle when there's 5 out.
I wouldn't swap you. But no, I think you're right. I think there's certainly a mentality side to it, and you've got to be confident in what you're doing. As you say, if you think just getting off the batter off strike is enough, then you're not fully committing to what you believe in, and you're sort of going down the line of not really trusting your gut, because your gut's telling you should be bowling your best ball, and if your best ball's not getting batters off strike, then it's something different. So I always think, okay, is my best ball still a wicket taking delivery? It's still a delivery that could go for 4 or 6, but it's also a delivery that if I bowl it the right way, more often than not, I'm giving myself every chance of being successful. Because at the end of the day, once we release the ball, we're releasing we're letting go of control, and we've got no control over what the batter decides to do. He could decide to take a massive swing at it, block it, so that's something that also is going to play into the mindset of it. Is this is what I believe is the best ball right now. I'm going to commit to it, and then once I let it go, I'm letting go of control, and what will be will be.
Just continuing with the power play thing, do you have a set 2 fielders out that you have for right or left-handers?
Yeah, I think I typically look at the way I bowl guys in front of the wicket. So I look at long on and mid wicket for right-handers, and then again we'll base that conversation with myself off. Well, I just noticed your hair.
Oh mate, cut. Less said about that, the better.
Sorry. Yeah. So again, it's coming back to it is, okay, are they traditional? Okay, they're probably going to hit down the ground. So I need a mid wicket and a long on for a right hander. If they're not as traditional, do I look at, maybe square leg instead of mid-wicket, or square leg and mid-wicket instead of long on, because they may look to play from the crease more and I've got to drag my length back and then try and force them into, coming down the wicket and playing a shot that they're not as comfortable with. And I typically found that in England and in the subcontinent, guys are a lot more comfortable playing from the crease and playing square of the wicket. Whereas, in the Caribbean and here in Australia, guys are looking to come down and hit the boundary straight and won't look to play across the line. So it's just adapting it slightly. And, you've got two fielders, so you want to try and put them in the spots where I always think back to, I bowl in the nets at training. Where are the guys slogging me more often than not? It's mid-on and cow to try and look good and hit you out of the nets and put that old ego bravado on. So, in a game, you want to put guys there and go, yeah, good on you, mate. But yeah, it's potluck and just figuring out what you think's best, really.
It's definitely a thing in grade cricket, isn't it? It's not about like how you play, how many times can you hit someone up the net.
100%.
You touched there on like bowling and like the T20 Blast or CPL. Like in your experience, like playing in different tournaments, like do you change how you bowl in general in terms of like different tournaments and different conditions?
Very, very slightly. I think it's just adapting to conditions. More often than not, it's really one of two things: is assessing is the ball off, or the conditions offering me to be a bit more aggressive. So am I playing in a wicket in the subcontinent or in the Caribbean that's conducive to spin, and is the game scenario allowing me to be a lot more aggressive? And I'll typically change my field rather than the way I bowl, and try and force the batter to do something. And then are conditions really good for batting here, and do I need to be a lot more defensive, be more defensive with my fields, and then also more defensive with my bowling and lines, and go along the line of I'm bowling at Shane Watson and Joss Butler, I've got to get out of this over as best as I can, and sort of try and go for 6 singles. And as an off spinner, if I'm going for 6 singles against those sort of players, I'm playing my role like better than expected. So that's where I sort of try and adapt it to, and yeah, it's just assess the conditions really. But I think I know the importance of my stock ball, and having that go-to ball under pressure, or go-to balls under pressure, will work hopefully anywhere.
Yeah, that's massive. I think to hear someone who's played a lot of T20, or primarily probably T20 so far, I think it's like pleasing to hear that having that control of your stop ball is still something that's really important to you. I think for a lot of youngsters, especially if they watch you play on TV and you're bowling in the power play, or you're bowling at death bowling Yorkers, you can get kids who just go and practice that rather than actually having that stock off spinner or leg spinner. So I think that's really good to hear that. Just spoke a little bit there about bowling at the death and like how you bowl Yorkers. Like what's your kind of approach if you're bowling, say, from 16th over onwards? Do you change a lot of how you go about it?
Yeah, I've started varying it, I guess, a lot more the last year or 2 years, and adding in different variations and mixing my pace more, because I guess being known a bit more, people know that I'm going to come on and just bowl Yorkers, so they can set up for that and expect that. So it's using that to your advantage, and showing a different variation, and almost going like boxing, is you show them your right hand, jab them with your left, and then you jab them with your left and show them your right, and you start playing a little bit of mind games on them. And I think when you can get one step ahead of the batsman, that can play in your favour, and particularly at the death where the pressure's on you, but you've got to think about how much pressure's on them and how hard they're trying to hit a spinner at the end. No one is comfortable against pace bowling. No one loves to get facing 150 k's an hour with the threat of a bouncer at your head. No one will be honest and go, you know what, I like that. So when they see a spinner on, straight away that want to hit the ball harder is in their mind. They want to hit the ball further. So you've got to, I try and sort of play off that and go, right, how can I frustrate them? And I know that if I execute my first 2 balls for a single or for 2 singles, then both batters are, subconsciously talking to each other going, what's going on here? We need to take this over for 20 plus. Whereas if I can go for 10, they feel hard done by, or that they've missed out on an opportunity. So it's really just assessing the situation again and going, what suits right now, and how can I build more pressure on the two batters at the crease and use it to my advantage. And then, like I said, is trusting one or two balls that are my go-to balls under pressure, because that's where the pressure's right on you. And just knowing that you've done the hard work, you've nailed this in practice. It's now time to just fully commit to it, trust that it's going to come out the way it's meant to. And, as I say before, let go of control, because, fielder may drop a catch, miss your best ball through his legs. The batsman may miss your worst ball and nail your best ball, sort of thing. Like, there's just so many variables that you just don't have influence over. Whereas what you can influence is your mindset and being fully committed to what you want to try and deliver. And, as I say, trusting your gut in that moment.
I really wanted to ask you about your mindset. I think preparing for this podcast, I tried to listen to a few old podcasts you've done, and some of the stuff you spoke about was something that really resonates with me, and something that I definitely try and do is about being process-based, which you've, I guess, in different words, you've kind of touched on there. What does being process-based mean for you, and how does that kind of show itself?
Yeah, I think it comes back to, if I stick to bowling, which I think is the easiest for me to do, is what I was talking about there, is letting go of control and trusting the process. So through the knowledge that I've been able to gather and what I've been able to learn off some of the best players, and again, I come back to Shane Watson talking about, and Paddy Upton, our coach at the Thunder, talking about that we actually have no control over results. And that was something that I was a bit, shocked or dumbfounded by when I first heard it, because it didn't make sense to me. If I'm bowling the ball, surely I control the outcome. But when we broke it down onto, what we actually have control over, then I actually spend minimal time worrying about what I have control over, and most of my energy and time worrying about what I don't have control over. So what's the point of worrying about it? So it really just brings everything back to, okay, I need to trust the process, trust what's happening right now in front of me, not what has happened or what could happen a ball later. Is being really present in asking myself what's required of me right now, and what I need to do to try and, for me, my words are, how can I contribute to the team right now in this moment, and breaking it down like that. In T20 cricket, if I play my best, I'm going to bowl 24 balls. How can I best bowl those 24 balls? And it's not a technical thing. It's more all mindset and going, right, my process is this, and I need to be strong and really trust it in that moment, and not think about, the previous ball going for six, or the previous ball being a dot ball, or the previous ball being a bad decision from an umpire, or, a nick through slips, or a misfield, or whatever those outcomes may be, and be really influenced on your process, going, okay, did I rush that ball? That went for six. I don't like to think that much in the moment, but in reflecting on the games, when I miss my spot, I always usually go back and I can feel, okay, that ball went for six. Why? Oh, it was a low full toss. Why was a low full toss? I didn't spend as much time at the top of my crease, or, I was influenced by the drop catch or the bad decision the previous ball, so I was trying too hard. So that's the influence on the process, and the result affected my process in making that mistake.
You spoke about you want to make sure you spend enough time at the top of your mark, and I think it's very, anyone who's watched you bowl before will be very noticeable, the deep breath you take at the top of your mark. Where did you start doing that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that came from a deep diving or free diving class we had at the Thunder in my first year. We had a talk from big wave surfers come in, and they spoke about how when they were getting smashed and pounded underneath waves, and that controlling that fear of drowning or not coming up, to relax themselves, they would force themselves to smile, which I found incredible. How are you on the point of losing your life and you're forcing yourself to smile, but if you do it and you smile straight away, you feel relaxed and less tense and more comfortable. So I tried bringing that into my cricket as much as I can, because that's when, if you force a smile enough, you'll start enjoying what you're doing and you're relaxed. And then the breathing aspect was just, we were holding our breath, and then using our breath to try and relax and focus on, being present rather than worrying about losing breath, whether the guys next to me are holding their breath longer. So it really just brought everything back to what I was just talking about being present, focusing on your process. So I tried to implement that into my game. And, for me, that breath is it's trying to relax, but also it's, all those thoughts that we've spoken about, it is figuring out what I believe is the best ball right then, maybe gathering information off my captain or a fielder, and then coming back to the top of my mark and going, right, what's my gut saying? Okay, my gut says I need to bowl my Yorker at the batter's feet. Okay, cool. I've committed. I'm committing to that ball. Everything else is gone, and my focus is now just on my spot where I want to try and bowl the ball. And it just brings in my focus to really narrow and sort of helps me eliminate all the distractions that may be happening around me in a cricket game.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, it's something I've definitely done the last 3 or 4 years as well. I didn't quite come from a big wave surfer or free diver, but my work with Stu McGill, he always used to speak about doing that. I think if you go back and watch him, you see he does it as well. But again, like, on how you reflect on your performances, like I completely agree. Like, I think when I look back and like I said, if you bowled a bad ball or haven't bowled your best, it's because you're not doing, like, you have this process that you think you're doing, but you're not quite sticking to it 100%. So, and like you said, it's completely in your control. So it's probably a really good thing to judge yourself on and reflect against.
Just on that, sorry. There are days where we all know where, you get out of bed and you're the best cricketer in the world, and no matter what you do, it's going to happen easy that day. And there are other days where you get out of bed and you've never picked up a cricket ball before, and it's like you haven't bowled for a whole year and you're feeling really nervous or rusty or whatever. And I think those are the days where you really have to bring the attention and focus to your process. And that's where I think it's important for any spinner of any age is to start thinking about, what are they thinking about, or what worked for them on days where they bowled well, and, where it was the perfect day. You put the ball in your hand, you go, wow, this ball feels amazing. I want to live with this ball for the rest of my life. It's coming beautifully off the fingers. And what are those little sensations or little thoughts that you can remember from that day? Because there's only going to be one or two things that you're thinking about. And that, at the end of the day, is your process. Because on the days where, you feel terrible, you can recite 1,000 different thoughts that are going through your mind. Like, why am I here? Why isn't this working? This should be working. I need to bowl better, all those things. And it's like, those thoughts and processes don't work for me. I need to block those out by only focusing on, for me, is my breath. So everyone's going to be super different on their thing. It's just, really start nailing that in practice, because there are going to be times under pressure, or you're not feeling great, where you've got to go, okay, eliminate all the distractions. How am I going to do this? And almost force the right process in that moment, rather than just letting it happen, because it's not always going to just happen naturally for you.
Yeah, I think every cricketer, every spinner is going to have those days, like you said, when they're in that kind of flow state, like they call it in sports psychology. Everything goes right. I think the big difference between people who are really successful and aren't is that on those days when it doesn't quite feel so good, they can find a way to get through it. I think that's a real point of difference between the level that spinners get to. Yeah,
I agree.
So you spoke a lot about that mindset stuff, about being process-based, and even the breathing, I guess, came from Paddy Upton when you were at the Thunder, or when he was at Thunder, sorry. Like, what was his coaching style like, and, what other things did you learn from him?
Yeah, I've just finished reading his book, which was interesting to, there were a lot of things in his coaching and leadership style that I was aware of, observing and sort of just being inquisitive into how he does it and why it's successful. And there are things that he did for us that I was unaware of, and now after reading it was like, oh, that's what he was trying to do. And I think one of the things that his biggest success is he wasn't an instructional coach. So he wasn't the guy that's going to get in there and go, right, this is how you're going to do it, this is how you have to do it. And that sort of old school style coach, if you like, that says, or leader that says, right, this is the way we're going to do it, follow me, we're doing it this way, you have to do it. Because that doesn't necessarily suit everyone. It'll suit a small few, or some will just do it because they have to. And again, it comes back to you're not fully committing or buying into it. And what Paddy did really well is he was able to use, motivational questioning and figure out, or help you figure out the right answer. So he would never provide you with the right answer or the direction in which he believes you should be going. And he would know it and he would know the answer, but he would help you get to that answer yourself. So straight away, you feel more committed to it because you figured it out yourself. But then on the side, you're like, and then it was funny, as I started getting aware of that, I was like, Paddy, I know you know the answer and I know you're going to help me find it, but can you just tell me, please? So it was an interesting thing, but it was, super cool to be a part of because, I still remember his first team meeting at the Thunder was, guys, I'm your coach, but my knowledge of T20 cricket is very limited, if not nothing. And everyone was like, what do you mean? You're meant to be our coach. He said, in this room, you have Jacques Callis, Mike Hussey, Owen Morgan, just to name a few, never mind all you guys who are just domestic cricketers who have played far more cricket, far more T20 games than I'll ever watch, be at, coach at. Let's come up with how we best think we should play as a collective. So straight away, it's not, this is how I think we should do it. This should be our goals. It was, let's figure it out collectively on how we want to go about this. So I think those were two of the things that really resonated with me, his ability to, get the group on the same page, and then also get you to come up with the answer yourself, really.
I think that motivational questioning is such a skill from coaches. Like even I've done a little bit of coaching the last couple of years, you kind of really appreciate that the skill level that takes. I know someone who you might have come across last summer, Tony Frost at Warwickshire, I think he's outstanding at that in terms of how it goes about. Like, you might be playing a game and you just go for a walk around the boundary. If you're not feeling in a great headspace with your cricket, and just from him asking you questions, you kind of solve your own problems, I guess. I think that's definitely a massive skill. And if there's any coaches listening, I think that's something I definitely try and put into practice if you can.
Yeah, I think it relates back to, why don't we like to listen to our parents when they talk about anything, is because the way typically parents talk to kids is very instructional. And it's not saying that my parents or your parents or parents are bad parents, but it's typically the way they do it. So it's like, well, no, you're wrong. And then we get to 18, 19 and mature, and actually, you know what, mum and dad, you were right the whole time. I just didn't want to listen, or I didn't believe you. And that's, the most basic version of it. And I had that, having professional tennis players as my parents and trying to coach me tennis. And I remember apologizing to when I was 18, going, God, I wish I listened to you. But it was just, I didn't believe it because it was, it was so, they just told me how it was.
Yeah. I think, like I said, in that Thunder side, there's a lot of big names. Like, what was, I guess more in the early days, what was it like playing with Mike Hussey, and did he have a big influence on you and your bowling?
Yeah, he did, and that whole gut instinct sort of came from him. And I remember there was a game in Brisbane, and he took me in like straight away, and he still does have so much time for me, which blows me away. And I sort of pinch myself with go, you know what, I can call Mike and ask him for some advice, and he's constantly checking in with me just because he's such a great human being. But it was a game we played against the Heat, and it was pouring rain. We should have been off. And he came up to me after the game and apologized to me. And I said, well, what for? And he said, I went against my gut instinct, and I got influenced by other guys to bowl pace in that moment because they were fearful of spin. I think I was obviously bowling well or matched up well at the moment. His gut was saying to bowl greenie or bowl spin, and he went against it. And that over was massive, and he regretted it straight away. And that's where I sort of asked him more about what that means. He said, well, I always, when I'm captaining or when I'm batting or whatever, is I don't want to go away from my gut instinct. And, that progressed further when I got to the CPL and they made me captain out of the blue in amidst a little bit of chaos. And I sort of reached out to him and said, after my first game, that I had 4 or 5 people running towards me with different opinions, how you sort of get through that when arguably those guys coming to me had more experience or were, bigger players or better players, yet I was the captain. I said, how did you navigate that? And he said, it just got to come back to your gut instinct is. You know, you may add those ideas or whatever someone brings to your gut feel, but if they don't match up, then don't go with it. Basically, just, you know, take them in. Same as, you know, any advice from a coach is you don't want to take 100% of his knowledge and you just want one or two things and you store the rest of it. And it may come up later in life that, oh, you know, when I was 12, I heard this thing, I want to apply it. It's relevant for me now. And as you said, that's probably where our gut instinct comes from. It's that knowledge base that we've been able to build up over time. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned off Mike is that gut feel and sort of, you know, really committing to what you think's best right now.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on that theme about asking you about players that you've played with. You also said there about bowling at Shane Watson next. Obviously, you played a lot of him at Thunder. What's kind of his influence been on you? Like, what stuff have you learned from him?
Yeah, and another guy that really there's a huge misconception about, particularly in Australia, about his character. He couldn't be a nicer guy, more family oriented, and you know, I'm very fortunate that he took me under his wing again when he came in, and then was his captain as well, and just really showed faith in me, similar to Mike, and that gave me a lot of confidence to go and perform and you know, trust my own gut, because I had the blessings of my captain and two of the better players to have played. But Shane, around that stuff about the mental side of the game and feeling comfortable with, you know, yourself. And as I said before, you know, he often spoke about being scared of fast bowling or being scared of the short ball. And it's like, well, actually, I'm scared of the short ball. Everyone's scared of the short ball, but we're not talking about it because it's seen as a sign of weakness. Yet I'm still comfortable or feel okay to play the short ball. I don't like it. There's no one who can honestly say, you know, bowl me 100 short balls at my head and that'll be a great fun training session for me. So just a few little things that he said. And then, you know, I think the biggest thing from Shane is bowling thousands of balls at him and working out my game plan, what works, what doesn't work, and just asking him questions and going, what did you think I was trying to do there? How did that open up? If I had this field, what's good? What did you think? You know, just trying to get as much better feedback off someone like that was crucial, and able to develop, you know, different things. Like I got my Karen ball or Dusha or whatever you call it, game ready against him. I just bowled it in for half the season. He said, have you bowled that yet? I said, no. He said, I think it's time. And I whipped it out and got lucky. So, you know, bowling at a caliber of player like that and as destructive as he is, as I've said, is certainly helped develop my bowling. And the feedback he's been able to give me on the spot throughout has been, you know, invaluable. I bowled at him in the T10 for 2 overs, and I don't ever want to do it again.
I remember watching him take down Graham Swan in a one-day game ages ago and just thinking, like, bowling off spin at him must be one of the hardest things. Hardest match for Eric in ways like slug sweeping.
Yeah, it's a horrible matchup. So, and he knows every part of what I've got in my pocket. So I didn't enjoy it.
That's probably quite a funny aspect of playing T10 around the world now. Like you said, you share all this information and you have really honest chats with teammates, but then inevitably, like, especially in your position, you're going to end up playing against them at some point. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it as well, is you know, even I could give you everything, all of my insights, all of my balls that I could bowl. So you know them, but it's almost, that could work well for me because you don't know when I'm going to bowl them. And, you know, I could bowl one ball and you'd be like, all right, sweet, I'm going to wait for the 2 or 3 other balls, but I'm only going to show you one ball. Or, you know, it's just sort of, again, like, it's a little bit of a gamble and just enjoying that challenge and going, okay, well, that's working. Do I mix it up or do I stick to it? And that's the gut battle that, you know, even with all the knowledge sharing or fear of knowledge sharing, sometimes it can help you more than you think as well. The more people know about you, the more they're watching your hands or watching your fingers. And it's like, well, actually, I could be doing nothing here, but you're looking for something. So you're helping me rather than making it harder for me.
Yeah, I guess, like, not quite the glitz and glamour of the T10, but I remember last year playing against Ed Pollock, and he's someone that I speak to a lot about my cricket, and he speaks a lot about batting and how he's playing spin, and I'll speak about my different plans, different situations, but like bowling him, and we both knew like exactly what each other's like plan A would be. We kind of had to go to plan B, C, D to try and like, that kind of bluffing and playing mind game. So it's really interesting dynamic. So I want to kind of stick on the same theme for a little bit. So obviously this podcast is all about sharing information that different spinners might have in the different conversations. So like, I just wondered in your early days, like, when you're still a good lad and played at Northern Districts, like if you played, like if you spent much time with Nathan Lyon then, and if he helped you kind of in the early days.
Yeah, I think being an off spinner in Australia, he was always someone that straight away I looked up to. And when we were able to play alongside each other at NDs, and then later a couple of games at New South Wales as well, that was really, really cool. And Steve O'Keefe's another guy who I've learned a lot of, just being around the New South Wales squad or playing alongside them at either club or state level, and just talking about the game. And I think, when you talk about spin bowling with other spinners, there's so much you can relate to, even if it's a different craft. Nathan and I are completely different off spinners, but we're sort of fighting the same fight as every spinner, and we're going through the same situation. So, I think the way Nathan bowls, and I think we sort of covered it earlier, is how good and how consistent his stock ball is just something that really I couldn't stress enough to myself, never mind anyone else, is how important it is. You can never be too good at it, and you're always going to make different mistakes with it. But he's probably the guy, in world cricket, along with maybe a Jimmy Anderson, that could be consistently hitting a 10-cent piece since McGrath, and you go, right, that's their stock balls, and they're just so consistent, and under pressure in any situation, in any condition, they can nail it. And I think that's something that he would hit home, and talking to him about, getting those things right for his stock ball and his process right for that, just sort of again hit home is how important actually having a stock ball is, and using it in any format, because it's so relevant. It's got to be your go-to ball. Like it's great to have funky tricks and different things, but you can almost trip over and confuse yourself at times with that. Whereas if 80 to 90% of your balls are exactly the same, just slightly different lengths, slightly different paces, that's probably going to be the most successful method. And to be honest, I think he's shown that. If you look at the way he bowls, he doesn't change much. He just may bowl slightly quicker, slightly slower, slightly different line, but it's the same stock ball, and he's the most successful off spinner in Australia.
I think it's not just how accurate and consistent he is, like that stock ball has so much on it that he can just bowl it. Like if if he's bowling at a right-handed in T20, if he's bowling his very, very best ball, like there's going to be enough on it to create problems. Like, there's so much drift, drop, spin, bounce, like it's literally everything. So I think it's having that mixture of a really good stock ball and being able to repeat it is probably why it's been so successful.
Yeah.
So going in your short career so far, you've had loads of success, winning the Big Bash, playing around the world, getting picked up in the IPL auction. In the last kind of 6 months, you've been through a bit of a tough time with your action getting called and having to do a bit of reconstruction work on that, I guess. And I think that, I don't know if there's people listening who have been through a similar process, or that might be something that happens to them one day. So I just wondered if you could speak a little bit about that process and how it's kind of been for you.
Yeah, it was something that, it came as a shock at first, having not really had much to do with it before, or been spoken to about it before. So it sort of hit me from left field a little bit, and knocked me off my feet, if you like. And there have been times, I have to be honest, there have been times through all of this, and you throw in sort of the restrictions of coronavirus adding to it, where it's been sort of hard, really tough on my motivation levels, and really restricting on what I can and can't do with regards to, practicing and working on my game. But, I think anytime being dealt with a setback is straight away to look at, okay, what are the positives that can come out of this, and really trying to flip the mentality of it. Is, how much it hurt me to sit on the bench watching my teammates play when I wasn't injured, playing the game that I love in one of the tournaments that I absolutely adore really, really hurt me, but it left me with so much motivation to come back bigger and better. And I saw this initially as a 90-day training block, and it's been extended through coronavirus. And coronavirus, rather than looking at it as a frustrating thing, going, when's cricket coming back, is, now I've been able to have my longest preseason ever. I feel like I'm bowling my best because I've been training every day from the 2nd of January on my bowling. So my technique's better than it ever has been. My body's working together. I'm probably in career peak fitness, and I'm hitting balls the best I have. It's like, well, I'm so excited to play cricket again. So I think anytime faced with any sort of setback, it's important, just from your mental well-being, is to, one, surround yourself with good people. And fortunately I had that. And then, sort of being honest with the setback and not sort of shying away from it has really helped as well. Because I think, fronting up to any setback, ill feeling, if you're feeling down mentally, is the first sort of step in going, okay, well, I want to try and get better, or I want to try and rectify what's gone wrong. And that really helped me. And then, I think focusing on the positives for me, my motivation is everyone's going to be watching me and looking at me more closer than ever. So how can I come back bigger and better and ensure that, I don't have to miss this series of cricket again. And that's helped me get out of bed and train and work towards my return to cricket plan. So I'm hoping that everything continues lining up really well and I can get back to doing that. But I've really enjoyed the time off that I've had in spending more time away from the game and focusing on things away from the game as well. So there's always plenty of positives that we can look for that we don't see straight away. And if you continue to focus on the negatives of that setback or whatever it may be, or then your eyes won't be open to the opportunities that could come from it.
Hopefully you can get back soon. But what's the process been like from when you're first kind of sighted or called? Is there been coaches around you, and what specific stuff have you worked on?
Yeah, look, I got together with my bowling coach here because it was just easy with Anthony Clark, and I was able to get a lot of advice from overseas as well, from Carl Crow, who's a gun in that space and has worked with those guys as well. So working with Anthony on the ground here as much as I can has been really cool, and we pretty much started from scratch. Every short preseason I have, we really try and focus on the technical work and getting my body working together. And this was, as I said, a blessing in disguise. Is we had guaranteed the longest bit, and it's now longer than we thought, to really work on, my basic technique, which again is coming back to my basic stock ball. And I'm excited. So we worked on, we started at the bottom and worked on my alignment from my feet. That's lining up so much better now, which again helps my body position at the crease. When my technique's out or my lower half's out, I bowl with an even bigger lean than I want to, or than I should. And then when that leans, then my arm path doesn't get as smooth as it should be. Whereas now that, my feet are lined up, my body's in a better position, then the work we've done on my arm path and release point is looking really, really cool. And the end result that's happening is I'm seeing more shape, more drop, more spin than, I ever have in my life, because I don't see much spin down the other end. Now all of a sudden balls are spinning, and it's like, well, why? So it's exciting. It's exciting me to see how it goes in games, to see how that adds to my bowling, or maybe it changes it slightly as well, which is also going to be a cool challenge to explore. Does that adapt my role a little bit more, give me more room to move and be a bit more of a wicket taker rather than just a one-trick pony defensive option, if you like. So it's been cool, and I guess it, as we've spoken about through this chat, is it's brought me back to the importance of nailing that stock ball and continually working on my basic technique throughout the year, rather than, if the year gets hectic and I'm playing heaps of games, not sort of forgetting about doing those fundamental basics that I know are crucial to my process. So a little bit more daily vitamins, if you like, with my bowling will be something that I'll be doing for the remainder of my cricketing career now, which is is just a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think that not just on the specific situation you've been in, but that positivity towards a setback is something that all young spinners or everyone can kind of learn from about, like you said, turning that situation into something that's, hopefully going forward going to be a positive for you. That's brilliant to hear, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
So, talk a bit more about the future and what the future for Chris Green has. Obviously so far you only played T20 and list A cricket. Like, do you have ambitions to play red ball cricket?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, more time, less balls at the batter, trying to hit you for 4 or 6. You can implement like a longer strategy, try and wear them down. And, I really love the long format of the game. For a few years, I've come out to England and played some second 11 cricket, and the 3-day games is the longest or sort of consistent stint of red ball cricket I've been able to play. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And, it's been so good for my overall game. And yeah, no, it's certainly something that I want to do. And for me, it's not choosing T20 cricket or choosing 1-day cricket or choosing long form cricket. It's, I always consider myself a really good trainer, but, it's now continuing to develop my game at the top level and seeking the best opportunities I can to play and, continue to grow my game and go, okay, well, I've done all this hard work in training. How can I get in a game? How does it go in a game? What mistakes did I make? Then come back that cycle and go, okay, I need to train again. And that's my sort of, I guess, growth model in the game that I'm implementing is I want to play as many games at the top level as I can, learn as I go. And then when I get these training blocks, just use them because, bowling at some of the best players is going to help me in any format. And as we spoke about, you look at Nathan Lyon changing to any format he bowls a stock ball, and that's what I'll be doing when I change as well. So, I don't want to pigeonhole myself, and I certainly don't want to be pigeonholed into just a T20 specialist. I want to be a cricketer, if you like.
Definitely. I think it's interesting how people's careers go. Like, I think, everyone says, so-and-so just plays T20 cricket. Like, that's his decision. A lot of the time it's not. You just kind of, your situations and selections you get like kind of dictate that. And I think with your home state being New South Wales, like you touched on earlier with Nathan Lyon, Steve O'Keefe, like there's a lot of good spinners that come from there. And I think, even from spending a very brief amount of time when I was there net bowling, like there's genuinely so much depth. Like even someone like Will Somerville moved to New Zealand, ended up going to play Test cricket there. So it's obviously a very competitive space. Like, do you think that, hopefully when you are back on that T20 circuit and playing pretty much all year round, like, do you think it's realistic to find the time to, like, like you said, you come and play Surrey second team or played some futures cricket? Like, do you think it's realistic to have that opportunity to develop your red ball while you're on the T20 circuit?
Well, I think from what I've learned now is in going through this time out of the game and remodeling on my action is the continued focus and need for my stock ball. And as I said, that stock ball applies across all formats in any situation. And that's, I think, the key to ensuring that your technique stays solid, and then also that you continue to nail your strength, because that's got to be your go-to ball under pressure in any color of ball, any length of cricket or any condition. So I think for me moving forward, the more focus I have on that basic technique and continual checkpoints that I have in with it and focus on that stock ball, it'll help me best transition across formats. And I think, you got to look at county cricket where you play a T20 one day and the next day you're playing a 4-dayer, and then you're back to a couple of T20s, and, guys go through form slumps and rises where they're scoring only T20 runs but can't score a bean in red ball cricket, or vice versa. And same with bowlers. And if you get too caught up in the mental side of things, then it will continue to affect you, rather than just going, you know what, I've done the basics well. I know my technique's solid. I've just got to trust that everything that I've done is going to help me now. And if I need to make little changes before, or slight, like a last minute change before, or focus before, it's not really going to be a technique thing. It's going to be more a mental thing, going, you know what, I need to focus more on getting my arm position here the day before a game or even in the warm-up, because I know when I do that, it feels really good for red ball cricket. T20 is like, okay, cool, I need to get, work on bowling that under intense effort or, with adrenaline pumping or whatever it may be, and slowing it down at the top of my run-up. Like, those are two things that straight away for me spring to mind when I talk about playing different formats or getting off a plane and playing a 4-dayer, which I did last year in February, which was weird. But I enjoyed it. It was just changing in the warm-up, going, I've done enough work in my stock ball here. And I bowled a bit longer than I usually would, but eventually I got on and I was able to be successful in the game.
That's a really good point about the overthinking different formats. I think that's definitely a trap you can get into. And I think, like, my next question here is, how are you going to get into red ball cricket? But I think that you've answered that there, and it's really pleasing to talk about that stock ball, because for me, like, in my opinion, red ball cricket is literally just that test of your best ball. Like, how often can you repeat it in terms of what's asked with you of the fields and how you bowl in different situations. So that's really good to hear. So finishing up, mate, I actually forgot to send you this question through, but I reckon I'm backing you. It's not bad. So every guest I've had on, I've asked them to finish off if they've got, one piece of on-field and one piece of off-field advice for a spinner. So, and you can go back over stuff you've spoken about today, but what would those clear standouts be for you?
Yeah, look, I think on the field, there's a few things that spring to mind, but I think immediately on the field is develop a good relationship with your captain, and be super honest with him, because more often than not, as a spinner, we find ourselves as we're one, maybe two in a team. So we're the one guy, and we get thrown the ball. This may come across as biased towards spinners, but we get thrown a ball when, things are working or things aren't working. And, the fast bowlers are finished bowling. They need a rest. You need to tie up an end here, or you need to change the game. Or, we're bowling at 9 and 10, you're playing for a game. So often the situations we get thrust into aren't the best for us, or the expectation is far great. It's day 4. It's spun for their spinner. He took 5 wickets. You've got to come on and win the game for us. So we get thrust into these situations. So I think in developing a really good relationship with your captain, where he trusts you and you trust him, and you guys can sort of talk honestly about your plans or the team's plans, or what he actually wants from you and how you can best execute that. Because, I've always thought about it, and I try and do it when I'm captaining as well. As a spinner, we get hit for 4 or 6, we find ourselves off the next over. Pace bowlers will get hit for cover drives for 4 or nicked for 4 or whatever, and get second, third, fourth, fifth chances. So captains are often reluctant to give spinners that chance or that protection or whatever it is to get settled in when the expectation on us is so great. So I think something like that's really key. And it comes down to, again, developing a really strong and gut instinct with yourself as well, going, how do I bowl my best, or what does it take for me to bowl my best, and trusting that even if the captain throws you the ball and says, win us the game, or just tie up an end here. It's like, okay, cool, I understand that, but I'm going to do it my way rather than anyone else's way. So I think those 2 points for on the field, I would say tie in really well is figure out what success looks like for you with the ball, and then how you can manufacture that into the team's plan, which is working through the captain and coach, depending on your level, and going, what's required of me today, or what's required of me right now, and doing that, because that's going to allow us to bowl longer, which we want to do.
Nice, mate. Sounds very spot on. And then what about for the off the field advice?
Off the field, look, I'll relate it to a training one, and simply from what's helped me is find, a couple of batters in your team that are the best players to spin, or have the greatest awareness to spin, and just bowl at them and ask them for the most feedback. Often there are going to be guys who will give you feedback and you're like, that's thanks, but it's not quite what I'm going for. And there are going to be guys that really hit the head, like the nail on the head. And those are the guys that you learn off. So for me, those guys that were Shane Watson, who, provided me so much feedback. So is continually to learn and grow and adapt your game, and, make as many mistakes as you can in trying things. And really trusting things against, those kind of players. And then either during or at the end of the net session, just asking a few questions and going, how was that? Was that easy? Was that tough? I was trying to do this. Were you aware of it? Or what did you think I was trying to do against you? Because I think in any format that'll help you into developing a trust for your game plan, to going, this works in the nets, this works against some of the better players. I can now go in fully committing to it into a game.
No, spot on, mate. Yeah, it's been brilliant, Greeny. I think there's a lot of really good insights for people listening there. I remember the summer we played together at Northern Districts, you helped my now fiance Kate with one of her uni projects. So thanks for helping me with my little spin project here, mate. So it's very much appreciated. You said you got your, I think it's your final test next week for your action. So fingers crossed that all goes well, mate. And when cricket starts back up, hopefully be back around the world playing again.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. I've really enjoyed chatting, and thanks for having me. And hopefully we can catch up for some cricket and some golf soon.